Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are the Owatonna School Board. This is Monday. It's January 6th. It's 5:30. We have two meetings tonight. The first would be our organizational meeting, and we will follow that up with a work session immediately following. The first item tonight would be to call to order, and I will, obviously Sarah can see, but we are all in attendance. Let's start our meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first thing that we would do tonight would be to welcome our new board members, and I would be very quick to say thank you very much for getting in and taking care of all the paperwork and getting all of that squared away. Sarah has shared with me that everything is done and in place. It's all signed. I would share with you just a very brief statement. I would say, Andrea, Ron, congratulations on your recent election to the Owatonna School Board. It's an honor and puts you in a position of responsibility for an equitable and quality education of every learner every day. You'll be asked to provide vision, structure, accountability, and advocacy for public education. Our responsibility is to provide every learner with the tools they need to be academically successful and prepared for life after graduation. Again, on behalf of the Owatonna School Board, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
With that, this is a recorded meeting. There are people that probably haven't had the benefit of an introduction, so if you would like or would be willing to take 2 seconds and tell us a little bit about yourselves, that would be awfully nice.
Sure. My name is Andrea Van Gelder. I have 3 kids in the district, high schooler, middle schooler, and elementary student. And my husband and I have lived here for about 14 years, and we're happy to call Owatonna home.
Thank you. Ron.
Hi, I'm Ron Kubicek, and I've lived here in Owatonna for about 20 years. This time I grew up south of here and then moved away and then came back. I have 7 kids. 4 of them have graduated from Owatonna High School, and then 2 are in the high school right now, and then I have 1 in 7th grade. So looking forward to our work with the board.
Excellent. Both of you, welcome. We will move on. Next item up would be to approve the agenda as presented. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. The first up would be to be the election of officers, and we start with the chair. So I'm Mark Sebring. Mark Sebring currently holds the office of chairperson. Nominations will be taken for this position, and an appointment will be made. So I will open the floor up for nominations.
I nominate Mark Sebring for chairperson.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, I am able to then simply declare that Mark Sebring will fulfill the role of chair of the Owatonna School Board. The next one would be the vice chair. Lori Weisenberger has held the office of vice chair in 2024. Nominations will be taken for this position.
I nominate Lori Weisenberger for the office of vice chair.
For a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? None. We will duly elect or declare Lori Weisenberger to be the vice chair. We'll move on to clerk. Are there any nominations for clerk?
I will.
Go ahead.
I will nominate myself, Elizabeth Hedlund, for clerk.
We have a nomination for Elizabeth. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Tim Jensen for the office of clerk.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so this is a simple voice vote. We will call for those in favor of voting for Elizabeth with an aye.
Aye.
And those voting for Tim with an aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Tim Jensen, you will be our clerk. And we will move on to the office of treasurer. Jolene Mose has held this office since in 2024. We will now open the floor for nominations for treasurer.
I nominate Jolene Mose for the position of treasurer.
Are there?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. Jolene Mose, thank you. You will serve as our treasurer. Item 6 tonight would be board action requested. And this would be the organizational items. It starts with the school board committees. And if you have an opportunity to do so, to the best of my ability, several of you had requested a particular committee to serve. The quick reminder here again is that there are board committees, district, and then there would be outside committees. And to the very best of my ability, I tried to spread the load out as evenly as possible and to accommodate the requests that you had put in for each of those respective committees. With that, I believe we can entertain a motion to approve.
I move that the board approve the school board committees as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions from anybody with regard to that? Okay. Anything, Ron?
Nope.
You okay? All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. At this point, I'm going to turn a lot of these over. I'll introduce it, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Elstad because he'll do a very good job of explaining what each of these would be. The first would be representative for Title I funding. Mr. Elstad, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Title I funding is something we receive from the federal government, requires federal statutes and regulations, and I am recommending that you would consider Julie Sullivan, our Director of Teaching and Learning, to serve in that capacity as our representative for Title I funding.
Any questions?
Mr. Elstad, I think our Director of Teaching and Learning traditionally fills this role. Isn't that true?
That is correct,
Yeah.
yes.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I
this is-
should have highlighted
Yep,
that.
no, that's
This has
fine.
been held by our Director of Teaching and Learning for a number of years.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I've got it queued up here, so I will move that the board authorize Director of Teaching and Learning Julie Sullivan to make application and be the contact person for funds as provided under the Title I Public Law 103-382 for calendar year 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Is that for 2025?
It would be actually,
24.
this is is it the school calendar year or is it school year?
The federal grants actually run by a calendar
It's a
year.
calendar year.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a calendar year.
Should be 25.
Oh, it should be, shouldn't it?
Yes.
Living in the past.
It's, it's complicated because there are some that are fiscal year and some that are,
Yeah.
actually, Julie, is this fiscal year, this one, the Title I? I think. So it is fiscal year. I stand corrected. It's the fiscal year. So it would be for FY, for the rest of this year, which is FY
25, 26.
And FY 26.
All
or
right.
A portion of FY 26.
And Sarah, did the corrected fiscal year make its way into the motion?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6C would be the official newspaper. Mr. Elstad.
The district is required to designate a newspaper for providing meeting notices, school board summaries, requests for bids, and other official business of the board. The Owatonna People's Press is the most frequently circulated newspaper in Owatonna and has been the official newspaper for the district for many years.
Any questions? One of you have that?
I move that the board designate the Owatonna People's Press as the official newspaper for Owatonna Public Schools.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item D would be the school board meeting schedule. And the very quick, I'm sorry for stepping on your toes here, Mr. Elstad, but we historically we will approve this tonight. And as the school year unfolds and we have a better sense of what activities may or may not, if there's something that comes up and there would be a true, conflict where several of us would not be able to be at the school board meeting, we'll just address it and we'll make changes if necessary. But to the best of our ability, Sarah kind of looked through the entire calendar and we have a pretty good sense that we're going to be okay. Sorry.
I would just add one thing for the board's consideration. In the past, the board has appreciated it, especially at work sessions, to have such a not quite a formal setting as this. And so we have utilized the district office conference room for that purpose, and that would be something I would ask the board to consider moving forward, not for perhaps every work session, but those that require more of a roundtable discussion is more conducive for that opportunity.
Do you think there's value in setting the location now, or can we do that as we go?
It's completely up to the board or the conversation that you would have about what we would do.
Right. The only thing that would be a possible conflict would be if that meeting room at the new district office is booked for something. But beyond that, I'm really, it's a much more conducive environment for work sessions. It really is. And to that end, my preference would be that we would just simply make work sessions a standing meeting at the district office.
There is one caveat that I just thought of. There are occasions when we need to have a short, regular meeting in front of a work session because of some business of the board that needs to be conducted before the next regular business meeting.
Yep.
So that would be the only consideration, but we do not necessarily always need to record board meetings. That is not a law. So.
Right. And there is a history that when that has happened, those were meetings that just didn't get recorded.
Correct.
Or like tonight, we have the work session here
Right.
following the business meeting.
Yep.
So maybe,
So
I would suggest we just do it on a case-by-case as we
Okay.
move forward. It sounds like there are too many,
Moving
we've
parts.
had several times when we've had a
kind of like the idea of having it as an option. So like Mark had mentioned scheduling.
Yeah.
If we can pull rank and say, let's make sure we have that room available,
Yeah.
I think that would be nice.
Yeah.
That gives us the flexibility.
And if we know there's a meeting where we should, or an issue coming where maybe we should record it, then we could just have it here.
So where are we landing? Are we saying we're going to meet?
I think it's up
This will be at
to,
the
I think
district office?
the only thing, there's legal notices we have to maintain. I think it's 72 hours. We have to maintain, 3 days. Yep. And as long as we notify people that they're, if you're scheduling the next work session at a regular meeting, and as long as we report that publicly at the regular meeting as well, the time before, that would be appropriate, and then we'll post it by the other statutory requirements.
Plenty of notice. Very good. So we're saying the district office
For work sessions.
for work sessions.
Yes.
And Sarah, can we ask you to get our name on the calendar so that,
All right.
and then if it's other than, we'll have to modify our notice.
Have we entertained a motion for this yet? All right.
We're having discussion.
I move that the board approve the 2025 meeting schedule as presented, with the caveat that work sessions are to be held at the district office.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We're going to move on to 6E. That's legal counsel. Mr. Elstad.
So the district uses a variety of firms to provide legal services. On occasion, when required, we keep these firms on retainer. Each of these firms has been used by the school administration for counsel, and more pointedly, in the past, we've used the law firm of Dorsey and Whitney on matters related to referendums. And we've also used the firm of Ratwick, Rozak, and Maloney on matters related to personnel and special education. And it would be my recommendation that we continue to receive counsel from these legal firms.
Anybody have any questions? Somebody have this one queued up?
All right, go ahead. I move that the board designate Dorsey and Whitney and Ratnick, Rozak, and Maloney and others as needed as the official legal counsel for the district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item F, designated depositories for school district revenue.
So in the past, we've identified where we are required to designate our depositories for our school district revenues. We have been utilizing Bremer Bank and PMA Financial and Network Incorporated, have been the district designated depository of revenues related to payroll, student activity accounts, general accounts, and savings, and they have provided great customer service to the district for those purposes.
Any questions?
I move that the board approve Bremer Bank and PMA Financial Network, Inc. as depositories for monies necessary to meet payrolls, activity account monies, and for school district revenues necessary to meet its general accounts, savings, and federal income tax withholding obligations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item G, designating financial institutions for school district investments.
The district has historically used a variety of institutions that oversee the proper investment of our assets. The financial institutions the district has used would be those that we would ask you to consider authorizing tonight: Wells Fargo Bank, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo Investment Service Incorporated, PMA Financial Network, Inc., and Bremer Bank as those institutions that protect our investments.
Any questions? Andrea, do you have this?
Yes. I move that the board approve designating the financial institutions as listed to be authorized to invest district assets as requested within all state and federal guidelines.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item H, authorizing persons to make transfers.
So the district is required to designate persons who can deposit or withdraw money on behalf of the district to the checking and investment accounts. In the past, we've had three primary business office officials who've served in this capacity, one being the director of finance, one being the controller, and one be another designated business office official that would be able to do that. And obviously, all of those transfers are made within all three sets of eyes are on those transfers, along with our auditors and other agencies that are watching. So,
Any questions? Lori, do you have this one?
I do. I move that the board authorizes the Director of Finance and Operations, the Controller, or designee to deposit and withdraw money on behalf of the district to the checking and investment accounts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You have a question. Go ahead.
Mr. Alsted, can you do we need to identify the designee? I mean, we're in Ms. Bowles, recently left our employment. Just to be sure that we have two individuals, do we need to identify that specifically?
typically, and we're in the process right now of posting a senior accountant position, and more than likely that person would also serve in that capacity as well. Right now, we do not have a director of finance in place,
Right.
But we have identified other individuals. I'm not quite certain exactly where that's been identified yet, but there is another member of the business office that would be
Okay.
in the event that the other two are not capable of doing so. And there's another fail-safe, which is also the superintendent.
Well, that's what I wondered, whether you have the authority to do that as well. So really, we have two individuals today, the controller.
That's actually, if you remember back in July, you gave me all of those rights as a superintendent to do that as well. So,
That's,
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we had
Yeah.
two at this juncture.
Right.
Excellent. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We're going to move on to item J, and I want to explain a little bit with item J.
Hang on, you missed I.
Did I miss aye? Oh, cosigners, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Elstad, if you
Yeah,
would.
so we do use a check signing machine. Obviously, with the number of checks we're writing every month, that only makes it efficient as possible. The designated co-signers will be the newly elected. Thus, it will be Mr. Sebring and Mr. Jensen, and Ms. Mose will be the signers within the automatic signatures. So,
Right. Jolene, do you have this one?
Sure do. I move that the board designate the co-signers of the district checks to be its chair, clerk, and treasurer, and for these signatures to be used on the district's check signing machine.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, board allowance. Just a very quick note of explanation. I made the recommendation, I'm making the recommendation that the board annual allowance per person has been $3,700. And a 4% increase, give or take, it's very close to a 4% increase, would bring it to $3,850. This is 4% would be very much in keeping with the contracts that we have settled over the course of the past year. There is an allowance for the chair of $600. And the one item that I would ask for you folks to give some consideration to tonight is that the vice chair has, for quite a long time, served a meaningful role in the establishment of these meetings and the agenda for these meetings. So there's a there's a measurable amount of time that the vice chair puts into this as well. And my recommendation is that in addition to the 600 for the position of chair, that we would entertain the motion and include a $450 compensation for the vice chair, additional compensation for the vice chair. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you folks might have. All right, so I'll do that. I move that the board approve an annual allowance of $3,850 per board member to be dispersed over 24 pay periods, additional $600 for the position of chair, and additional $450 for the position of vice chair.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So I was actually going to, just in considering of the financial deficit that we have going into the next year or two, I was going to ask the board to consider not doing any increase this year, just even though our budget, 70 million, this is a small part of that, but just a thought.
And I understand where you're coming from, Elizabeth, but I think if we look in terms of other capacities, city council, county commissioners, we have to keep pace because we want people to continue to participate and run for these positions, and there needs to be a financial component to it. And school board is clearly significantly lower than every other elected position in our community. And so as we can kind of limp along, I think that's beneficial for the future. But I appreciate the sentiment on the deficit and where we're at. I get that.
Yeah, and just for the record, I mean, again, I appreciate the additional funds because I fill that role today, but that doesn't mean I'll fill this role, into the future. So again, to your sentiment that, yeah, I think there's a real concern if we lag behind, right? I'd say we already probably lag behind to some degree.
Yes.
So that's always been one of my concerns as well. But your point is well taken.
Legit. Want to flesh it out anymore? Is your question answered?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we have motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, duly noted. Item K, appointment of deputy treasurer, Mr. Elstad.
This is perhaps a follow-up from the question that Ms. Weisenberger just raised. So I would be appointed, with your permission, to be appointed the deputy treasurer in the act. In fact, if the treasurer is not able to complete their duties as such. And so this has been held by the superintendent of schools as a means of providing an internal check on the district's accounting system, and has been done so for many years that way.
Tim, do you have this one?
Yep. I move that the board appointed superintendent to serve as the deputy treasurer of the district to assist the elected treasurer in carrying out his or her responsibilities.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. I will move that we adjourn the organizational meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor with an aye? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Good meeting. I am going to essentially turn now the